Isdal Woman, the mystery death haunting Norway for 46 years. How a Nordic mystery death led to a trail of coded messages, disguises and fake identities. Stephen Missel. It's a mystery that has intrigued Norway for nearly 50 years. In November 1970, the badly burnt body of a woman was found in a remote spot in Norway's Isdal Valley. Someone had cut the labels off her clothes and scraped distinctive marks off her belongings, as if to stop her from being identified. And as police started investigating her death, they uncovered a trail of coded messages, disguises and fake identities, but never cracked the case. 46 years later, Norwegian police and NRK journalists have decided to reopen the investigation. This is the story of the Isdal Woman and the perplexing trail of clues she left behind. On the morning of the 29th of November 1970, a man and his two young daughters see a body in Isdal Valley. The corpse is sprawled across some rocks, with its arms extended in a boxer position, typical of bodies that have been burnt. Isdalen is known to some locals as Death Valley. It was a site where people committed suicide in medieval times, and in the 1960s, some hikers had fallen to their deaths while trekking in the fog. But the woman does not appear to be a normal hiker. It was out of the way. It was an unusual place to walk. Carl Halvar Ass, a police lawyer who was one of the first officers to be called to the scene, recounts to the BBC. He remembers a strong smell of burnt flesh. The body was burned all over the front, including the face and most of her hair, he says, but strangely, it was not burnt on the back. It looked like she had thrown herself back from a fire, he says, adding that she was so badly burnt they could not imagine what she originally looked like. Image caption: this is believed to be the spot where the Isdal Woman was found. The scene is cold by the time Carl arrived, so he cannot tell how long the body has been there for. And how did the woman end up on fire? Clue 2. The objects police find a number of objects at the scene, including jewelry, a watch, a broken umbrella and some bottles. But it is the positioning of the objects that leaves the strongest impression on Tormod Bones, one of the forensic investigators. The woman is not wearing the watch or her jewelry. Instead, they have been placed beside her. The placement and location of the objects surrounding the body was strange. It looked like there had been some kind of ceremony, he says. Police also find the remains of a pair of rubber boots and nylon stockings. She had been wearing a lot of clothes, of synthetic materials, and all the clothes had been heavily burned, says Tormod. Adding to the mystery is the fact that the production labels have been cut off her clothes and rubbed off the bottles at the scene. Police find nothing at the scene to indicate who the woman was. The remains of an item of clothing and an umbrella found at the scene. Image source: Western District Police. Image caption: police found items of clothing, drinking bottles, the remains of nylon stockings and pieces of jewelry at the scene. Police issue an appeal for eyewitnesses. They say the woman was about 164 centimeters, 5 feet 4.5 inches, tall, with long brownish black hair, a small round face, brown eyes and small ears. She appeared to be aged between 25 and 40 years, and wore her hair in a ponytail tied with a blue and white print ribbon at the time of death. Without a name, the woman becomes known as the Isdal Woman, an artist's impression of the Isdal Woman distributed by police. The story is big news in Bergen, a peaceful town with a low crime rate. A few days later, police find a clue. Clue 3. The suitcases. They find 2 suitcases at Bergen railway station's left luggage department. One of the suitcases contains prescription-free glasses, and a fingerprint on one of the pairs matches the woman's. The suitcases also contain clothes, several wigs, German and Norwegian money, and Belgian, British and Swiss coins, a comb and a hairbrush, cosmetics, some teaspoons, a tube of eczema cream. Initially, police were very optimistic because they thought the suitcases would help them identify the body, says Tormod. Image source: Bergen State Archives. But soon they realized that all the labels that could have identified the woman, her clothes or belongings, had been removed. Even the prescription sticker on the eczema cream, which would have shown the name of the doctor and the patient, has been scraped off. Police try hard to trace the woman's belongings. They even contact several major department stores abroad, including Galeries Lafayette in Paris, to see if the stores recognize any of packaging on the woman's makeup. None of the department stores can find a match. There is also a mysterious coded note in the case, which police will not crack until a while later. See Clue 5. There is one important piece of evidence in the suitcase: a plastic bag from Oscar Rortvedt's footwear store, a shoe shop in Stavanger. The owner's son, Rolf Rortvedt, remembers selling a pair of rubber boots to a very well-dressed, nice-looking woman with dark hair. The boots he sold her appear to match the boots found on the body in the Isdal Valley. Police believe that the umbrella found near the body was also bought from the store. The boots sold at Oscar Rortvet's footwear store were similar to the pair found at the Isdal Valley. Rolf says the woman had made an impression on him because she took a long time choosing her boots, much longer than the average customer. She spoke English with an accent and had a calm and quiet expression, he tells the BBC. He also recalls a strong smell emanating from the woman, which later he thinks may have been garlic. Using his description, police are able to trace the woman to St. Swithin Hotel nearby, where she checked in as Fenella Lorch. The problem: Fenella Lorch wasn't her real name. Clue 4. The hotel forms. It emerges that the woman had stayed in several hotels in Norway, using different aliases, and since most hotels required guests to show a passport and fill in a check-in form, this means she would have had several fake passports. On this form, the woman claimed she had arrived from London police. Find the woman had stayed in the following hotels under these names: Genevieve Lancier from Louvain, stayed in Viking Hotel, Oslo from 21, the 24th of March 1970. Claudia Tielt from Brussels, stayed in Hotel Bristol, Bergen from 24, the 25th of March. Claudia Tielt from Brussels, stayed in Hotel Scandia, Bergen from the 25th of March to the 1st of April. Claudia Nielsen from Ghent, stayed in KNA Hotelet, Stavanger from 29, the 30th of October. Alexia Zarnemerches from Ljubljana, stayed in Neptune Hotel, Bergen from the 30th of October to the 5th of November. Vera Jarl from Antwerp, stayed in Hotel Bristol, Trondheim, from 6, the 8th of November. Fenella Lorch, stayed in St. Swithin Hotel, Stavanger from 9 to the 18th of November. Ms. Leenhofer stayed in Hotel Rosenkrantz, Bergen from 18, the 19th of November. Elizabeth Leenhofer from Ostend stayed in Hotel Horderheimen, Bergen from 19, the 23rd of November. Image caption: police matched the different forms together by conducting handwriting analysis. This headline reads, "The woman in Isdalen had at least 6 different aliases." The woman left a strong impression on Alvild Rangnes, who was a 21-year-old waitress at Hotel Neptune at the time. "My first impression of her was one of elegance and self-assuredness," she tells the BBC. "She looked so fashionable. I wished to be able to mimic her style. In fact, I remember her winking at me. From my perspective, it felt as though she thought I had been staring a bit too much at her." On one occasion while I was serving her, she was in the dining hall, sitting right next to, but not interacting with, 2 German Navy personnel, one of which was an officer. The woman's final stay was in the Hotel Horderheimen. Police questioned several hotel staff who met the Isdal woman, including Alvild. They learned that in addition to speaking English, the woman also used some German phrases. They also learned that the woman often requested a change of room. On one occasion, she asked to change rooms 3 times. Clue 5. The note. By now there are several rumors that the woman was a spy. There weren't too many foreign tourists in Bergen then, and the fact the woman seemed wealthy and well-traveled sparked a lot of speculation. This was during the Cold War, and there were definitely a lot of spies in Norway, including Russian spies, says Gunnar Stalson, a Bergen-based crime author who was a university student at the time. There were also Israeli agents operating in Norway, as shown 3 years later. When Mossad agents killed a man in Lillehammer, they had mistaken for a terrorist, he adds. Image source: Bergens Tidende. Rumors say the woman was a secret agent. Norwegian intelligence services are investigating too, but will not admit it until decades later. According to NRK, security services were interested in reports that the woman had been seen observing the military test out new rockets in western Norway, but there weren't any clear conclusions from their investigation reports. Police eventually cracked some of the coded note, but it doesn't provide any evidence that she's a spy. Instead, it appears to be a record of the places the woman visited. For example, 022-028p are dates: 22, the 28th of October. She was in Paris. 029ps is the day she traveled from Paris to Stavanger. 029s matches the date she arrived in Stavanger, the 29th of October. And 030bn5 matches her stay in Bergen from the 30th of October to the 5th of November. Police send a description of the woman and sketches of what she may have looked like to several police forces abroad, but none of them say they can identify the woman. Clue 6. The autopsy. Meanwhile, investigators complete an examination of the woman's body. They find an unexplained bruise on the right side of her neck that could have been the result of a blow or a fall. There are no signs that the woman had been ill. The autopsy also finds that the woman had never been pregnant or had a child. One of the forensic cards summarizing the autopsy findings. The woman's name, position, address, date of birth and death are all listed as unknown. Her death is likely to have been a painful one. There were smoke particles in her lungs, which shows that the woman was alive while she was burning, Tormod says. He found a trace of petrol in the ground below the woman's body, which means we can state with certainty that petrol had been used to set her alight. She had a high concentration of carbon monoxide in her blood. Experts also established that there were about 70 sleeping pills from a foreign brand called Phenomal in her stomach, although they had not been fully absorbed into her bloodstream before she died. Police distributed the woman's fingerprints via Interpol. The autopsy concludes the woman died from a combination of carbon monoxide poisoning and ingesting a large number of sleeping pills. The cause of death is announced to be a probable suicide, a view supported by Bergen's chief of police. But many people find this hard to believe. We talked about it in the police, but as far as I remember, very few thought it was suicide, Carl Halvor Aas says. Both the remote spot where her body was found and the method of suicide by fire strike him as strange. Image caption, I do not believe it was suicide, Carl Halvor Aas. Without any further leads, the case is closed and the woman is buried in February 1971. Police think the woman may be Catholic and organize a Catholic funeral for her. According to a police report of the funeral, the coffin was decorated with lilacs and tulips, and the priest conducted a simple ceremony for the unknown woman, who was put to the grave in a foreign country without any family present. The funeral was attended by police officers. Police still hope to find the woman's family. She is buried in a zinc coffin that won't decompose, and keep an album of photos from the funeral for her relatives. Like and subscribe for more enigmas.